Hey everybody, welcome to Wealth Wednesdays, a new webinar series launched in January of this year, hosted by Inspired to Invest to discuss all things related to abundance, prosperity, and wealth. Today I've got Vlad Bulban joining me from iGenius to talk about everything related to crypto investing. He's got a background in civil engineering and he's worked in the field for 5 years. In 2020, he started his network marketing online business with a financial education company that teaches people how to make, manage, and save more money. Over the last 5 years, he's used his business to help thousands of people leverage the financial markets to start making money, making their money work for them instead of only working for their money and trading their time for money. We'll be going through some questions for the first half of the webinar and then opening it up if there's any guests for the second half. But before we get started, I just want to read a very brief disclaimer. The views represented on the webinar are for general information only and don't constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest in this webinar make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you're completely responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It's recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals before making any investment. So with that being said, how are you today, Vlad?
Exceptional. How are you, Serena? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing great, thank you. So obviously I've had the chance to get to know you a little bit through the Wealth Club, and I have sit on a couple of your presentations. And I think crypto is just such an interesting space. It's something that I think, feels elusive for anyone that's outside of it. So maybe you can just kind of take a step back and you can share a little bit more about how you discovered this industry, because you have made some big strides, especially in the last couple of years. So take us back to where that all began.
Yeah, so I find that there's two types of people in this world, and there's the people that believe in cryptocurrency, and there's the people that don't believe in cryptocurrency yet. And for the first 24 years of my life, I was the person that didn't believe in cryptocurrency. Heard about it in high school from some of the nerdier people in the class who are probably now retired and driving Lamborghinis. But fast forward, from when cryptocurrency came about in 2009 up until 20, I would say 2020, uh, I first got involved. I got my feet wet in the crypto space, in the financial markets in general. Came across a platform that kind of found me at the right place, right time during COVID, when uh, I learned a lot of truths about the world that exposed themselves to me, and I learned that trading my hours for dollars wasn't going to get me far, and I had to find another way. And
Yeah.
figuring out how to make trade my dollars for more dollars opened up uh,
But when you
a lot of
say the
doors for me.
truths, I just don't want to miss the moment. Can you explain exactly what kind of truths that would be? I
The
just find it
truth.
really an
Oh,
interesting way that you just explained it. Like what truth?
yeah. Okay. So let's put it this way. My whole life, I was working towards, since I could remember, I was building buildings out of Lego and putting puzzles together that are 1,000 pieces large when I was like 5 years old. So I always had this mind that I wanted to build things and become this big engineer and art, or you know save the world in that sense. But I did the whole thing that the society teaches us, meaning you go to school, you get the good grades, you get a good job, and then you retire after 40 years or so. Uh, and I don't know what kind of dream I had in my head, but over time that dream started to diminish. And when I finally got out of school and my boss put me in a cubicle and he said, if you do a good job in here for 20 years, I'll put you in that bigger office for 20 years and you have a window there. I, that dream quickly turned into something else. And it was kind of like I felt like I was been lied to, or Santa wasn't real. Something didn't make sense to me at that point, because I was getting paid for my engineering job that I thought was going to pay me well. Could barely afford to live. We live in an expensive city.
Yeah.
Uh, couldn't qualify for a mortgage. Uh, then my dad lost his job, and he was my role model that taught me how to work hard his whole life. And
Yeah.
he's the one that taught me how to, save, 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 put your money in a bank, make 1% a year. So again, a lot of these truths that I thought were true about the world didn't turn out to be so.
Yeah.
Kind of in a very short period of time in 2020.
But it was kind of that light bulb moment, right? Now, I
Yeah,
think for a lot of people that are on this path to achieving wealth, mindset obviously plays a really big part of that. Can you talk about, how you had to manage your mindset? Because obviously you had this aha moment and you realized that maybe this wasn't paving the path that you wanted. So how did you really kind of break through to the path that you're on now?
right. So let's step back to 2020 and the culmination of all of my life experiences to a matter of a few weeks during in March 2020 during the COVID, you know, the onset of COVID, when a lot of these truths came to light. And my dad lost a job in the same month that I couldn't get a mortgage, in the same month that uh, I started seeing how the government was treating their people. And for the first time, I realized that I had my suspicions that the government weren't our best friends, and they didn't want us to become wealthy and live in abundance and pay less taxes and all this. But
Yeah.
it really came to light when I saw them abuse their power and leverage they had on society in 2020 during the COVID crisis.
Yeah.
And I guess my mindset uh, that I had for the first 24 years of my life before this aha moment was that I guess we can say that I had an indoctrinated mindset from what we can call the system, the society, the matrix, that money doesn't grow on trees, that rich people go to jail, and it was a conditioning set, program set of beliefs that I had to reprogram. And I guess your question was what kind of mindset shift I had to make. Well, I just had to reprogram, the neurons in my brain and then different neural pathways and say, listen, everything that I was taught for the first 24 years of my life was taught to me by somebody else. And I wasn't born like this. This was all programmed.
Yeah.
So I can essentially reprogram my software to where I want, to what I want. And I upgrade my software to live the life that I want because the first 24 years of my life was taught to me in majority by people whose lives I didn't want to live. With all due respect to my teachers who were struggling themselves, making 50, 60 grand a year, but they were teaching me for 8 hours a day. And my parents who I love and respect, but are still working very, very hard in a modern society with their traditional beliefs. So it was hard for them to figure it out too. And again, this programming in large part by people whose lives I didn't want to relive,
Yeah.
I had to unprogram and reprogram myself.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I
the
had a mentor
type
that
of
talks a
paradigm
lot
shift.
about that as well, and he talks about some of the same things that you're talking about when it comes to the narrative and the things, when you come from a family that's maybe like on the lower end of middle class or something like that. And he said something that I thought was really profound, just talking about how money is like a magnifier. So basically, if you're wealthy, like if you're naturally giving and helpful and resourceful, like you'll be like that with other people when you have more money. But if you're naturally like an a-hole, like it will magnify all of those different things. And that can be maybe where some people with money get that bad rep because it does amplify all of those qualities in them. And, money just makes it that much worse. But I find that really interesting. Now, when you look at things like limiting beliefs, like I think it is an interesting concept because, again, a lot of people just don't understand the fundamentals when it comes to crypto, maybe, right? So it's just lack of education, lack of experience. It's holding people back. When you think about wealth in general, what are some of those challenges that you see that are kind of holding people back from making that big move? And like, how have you seen people overcome them once they are educated?
Right. So it's very easy to say that money is a mindset, but at the end of the day, it sounds like a cliche because it's true. And I'm not going to discredit those that come from lower income housing and they make it to the top. Uh, but at the end of the day, the cards that you're dealt with in life are the cards you're dealt with in life, and you can't reshuffle the deck and ask the dealer to give you a new hand. You have to play the best hand, you have to play your hand that you're dealt with
Yeah.
in the best way possible. Every single move on your chessboard of life has to be the best, has to optimize for your life.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it is a mindset because that's all you got at the end of the day. And a lot of limiting beliefs, again, stem from the programming that we've had in our lives. Uh, and again, like you mentioned, kind of what we focus on grows, right? It magnifies. And if you were to ask, okay, Elon Musk, do you think making money is hard, Mr. Musk? He'd probably tell you, well, how much money are we talking about? A billion? Yeah, a billion's not that easy. But if you're talking thousands of dollars with Elon Musk, I'm sure he'll tell you it isn't hard for him to make. And that's because his philosophy and his paradigm on the concept of money and making money is different than the average person, right? So again, mindset is all we got at the end of the day because there's somebody that may have had it worse than us, but still did it better than us anyways.
Yeah.
So we can't fret about the cards we're dealt with in life. We can only shift our paradigm and
Yeah.
act accordingly.
Now, when it comes to just crypto, the basics, I found it really interesting at the event back in November where you walk through some of the history and all the details around currencies. Can you go into a little bit of detail for someone that just really doesn't have a basic understanding of crypto and what those fundamentals look like and why you see so much potential in it going forward? Because I think it's a construct that some people really can't wrap their heads around. And it's kind of like there's a currency aspect to it, and then there's a trading aspect to it. And I think for a lot of people, they just feel like it's not real, right? So, and even what the difference is between maybe crypto and blockchain, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or the is it ETFs or EFTs? Am I saying this wrong?
yeah,
Like, yeah. So like it feels like you're kind of trading these like video game avatars or something, right? So maybe you can just explain the differences between them just for anyone that doesn't have a basic understanding.
yeah. Like like I feel for people that don't understand how this something like this is real and how like how it can make you so much money or lose you so much money. I can understand that because people are living for decades touching, feeling, and smelling their money, right? Their so-called money.
Yeah.
And the concept of cryptocurrency uh, is um, is been around for decades. The first cryptocurrency technically was Bitcoin that was invented in 2009, and it was somewhat of a retaliation to all the government antics that were happening up until that point. We remember the 2008 financial crisis, and you know, lo and behold, the retaliation from an anonymous creator of Bitcoin called Satoshi Nakamoto. That's what he calls himself. He created this digital currency that he called Bitcoin with this blockchain technology that was essentially a public database where anybody can see transactions, anybody can use, and it's verified by everybody else on the blockchain, which created sort of decentralized currency, which was vastly opposed to what was at the time only centralized currencies that were issued by these big banks and institutions and leaders of the world, right? So, as a sort of retaliation against the free world, what people would call the free world, Bitcoin gained a lot of notoriety and a lot of popularity off the bat. It started trading in the market in early 2009 at under a penny. Uh, there's a story about somebody buying, two pizzas with like Bitcoin that are now worth like millions of dollars. That happened in 2010, but since then, since 2009, Bitcoin's been the fastest growing asset class, and it's called an asset class in the world now, with an average from 2009 of over 100% a year. So on average, you can extrapolate it. You'd be doubling your money every year. Now, of course, when I say an average, some years you can go up 3x, and in a bad year, you can be down 50% on your money. So
Yeah.
let's just draw a straight line up in that sense. And from Bitcoin came a family of alternative cryptocurrencies. You might have heard of XRP and Ethereum and Solana and these newer cryptocurrencies that are developed uh, by individuals and others that are trying to, I guess, and I'm going to be optimistic. They're trying to help the cryptocurrency world, but because Bitcoin may be sort of let's say, outdated technology to some of their standards, and they're creating faster blockchains and cheaper blockchains and more scalable blockchains that are being adopted worldwide. But the reason why Bitcoin itself is remained such a strong and outperforming asset class is because of a few things compared to other cryptocurrencies and compared to fiat money in general.
Yeah.
One being its fixed supply. This is a huge fundamental value for Bitcoin. The way the Bitcoin was invented, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin that can ever be circulating in the supply at once. Right
Okay.
now, there's currently about 19 million.
So it's not
Uh,
like printing, or when you hear about the government printing money and how that
yeah,
leads to inflation and stuff like that, right?
exactly. So the reason why Bitcoin goes up in value, people like want to know. Well, it's not that Bitcoin is like it's like somebody asking, well, how did this house go from 500K to 3 million? We didn't add a room to it. We didn't put another, we didn't put another story on,
Yeah.
on the bungalow. It's the fact that the money is the base currency is devaluing. So compared to that dollar, the house is more expensive.
Yeah.
Compared to the dollar, Bitcoin is more expensive because they're printing cash faster than they're printing land and homes. They're printing cash faster than they're printing Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Uh, which is what's causing the dollar to weaken versus these assets. And Bitcoin is so fixed in supply at 21 million, and it's amongst its other fundamental advantages that literally just as a store of value compared to the dollar, it's such a crazy inflation hedge because uh, again, like if you're to search up the U.S. national debt, for example, and you see how
Yeah.
much money they owe and how much money they're printing to pay off that debt. Yeah, saving your money is a will put you in a tough position. So you got to find ways to to beat inflation. Really, Bitcoin is a big way that people are doing it.
Now, can you talk about some of the biggest mistakes that you're seeing with people that are trying to build wealth through crypto? And I'm sure part of that is just, there could be volatility, right? Just like the stock market. But can you talk about maybe how that could be similar, but also different, and what kind of things that people need to watch out for?
Yeah. So with any emerging market, there's opportunity for good and for evil, right? Nobody wants to get rich slow, but getting rich quick comes with its own inherent risks, right? I like to tell people that are getting into the crypto space that you want to understand how the markets work more so than you want to just get lucky and get rich. Because you might like people, I've seen people get lucky once, but it's very hard to get lucky more than once. Your odds of getting lucky once are very slim. Your odds of getting lucky twice are almost impossible. So uh, to avoid, you know, disappointment, it's almost inevitable in the crypto space, but you have to pay your tuition by learning how markets work. You have to understand the fundamentals, the technicals. You have to understand market psychology. You have to understand your risk management, your own personal risk tolerance, your own personal financial situation.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a lot to learn first, and think if you're thinking of like you're building a building, okay? You want to build a deeper and wider foundation so that the building can go as high as possible above grade. But a lot of people are getting into the crypto and the financial markets without trying to build a foundation. They're just trying to build on soil, on dirt. And what happens is, your building collapses and it leans over and catastrophe, right? And then they got to rebuild it. And sometimes they don't rebuild it the right way again. So
Yeah.
again, it's about learning the fundamentals and really understanding how the markets work uh, in a constructive fashion. That's the best approach at it. And relative to something like school or university, like my one of my friends who's in med school, and he's like been in school now post secondary school for like 7 years and still not working full time as a doctor. And he's like, I got into crypto like 7 years ago and I've made so much money and I haven't made a single dollar as a doctor yet. So it's very it's very weird for a lot of people to fathom, right?
Yeah.
But again, you learn when I compare it to med school, it doesn't take 10 years to understand how these markets work and actually start creating some sort of a return from them,
Yeah.
which is very, very lucrative.
Now you're talking about educating yourself. So I understand that you're with iGenius. So can you talk
Yeah.
about that platform and how it is, a powerful vehicle for people that do want to learn this space?
Yeah. So iGenius is what I attribute my knowledge of the financial markets to. It's a financial education platform, and it's sort of in the online e-learning space. It's a platform that has hired over 30 different experts in the financial markets, between the forex market, crypto market, stock market. These experts are essentially paid by membership subscribers that uh, pay a monthly fee,
Yeah.
and these experts essentially go on live sessions, pre-recorded sessions, with the members through the online platform. They deliver trade ideas in real time. So if you think about a brand new person that's walking in to a buffet, they have all these different things they can choose from. They can kind of say, okay, I want to try this. I want to try this. I like this. I don't like this.
Yeah.
And they eventually learn by leveraging experts in the markets, which is a really cool way of doing it. And this is a mindset shift that I had early on, was like, if I can pay for access to this information that can expedite my success, why not? I find a lot of the more successful, the more affluent friends I have in my life, they pay to save time and to get ahead.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of others would say, "Oh no, it's okay. I'll watch a YouTube video. I'll learn how this works," and then they just pay in time and money anyways because of the
Yeah.
mistakes that they're going to make through the free resources that everybody gets access to, right?
Now, when you talk about mistakes, can you talk about a time that you might have made a serious misstep and how you came back from something like that? Like, were you ever in a situation where you lost like half your portfolio or all of it?
Yeah, I'll talk about this one time. So in March 2020, I got involved in iGenius, where I started paying experts to actually show me how the hell this stuff works. In Actually, today's March 26th. I got involved in iGenius on March 26th, 2020. So exactly 5 years ago
Happy
today.
anniversary.
It was, yeah, thank you. But about 2 weeks before that, in 2020, the market started to fall, crash because of COVID. And I heard I was working my old engineering job at the time, and I was hearing all this fuss about the markets being cheap and they're crashing, and there's a lot of buying opportunities. But I was the first one in my family to ever buy a stock, right? Never knew understood how this investing stuff worked, but I had a lot of money saved up in my TFSA that was making me 1% a year, even though I had uh, an intuition that the bank was a business and they were making money with my money, but giving me back 1% a year.
Yeah.
But besides the point, big mistake I made. Okay. This was, I guess, mid-March was when stocks started to fall. And I had these people around me in my office or friends that were telling me about these stocks that were on sale. And without doing any sort of research or any sort of analysis or any sort of like risk management, any sort of in-depth analysis, I just took my TFSA and I bought a bunch of stocks with them, all at once. Uh, and I can remember I bought Air Canada stock, and let's say for exact, I can't remember the exact
No.
number, but it was
It's horrible
crashing
because
like,
it's right before the travel bans.
yeah, right before the trial ban. So everyone's telling me it's on sale. I think it was like at like $20, and it dropped like 10%. So let's say arbitrarily I put like 10,000 in Air Canada. The next day I wake up, it was at 9 grand. And it dipped another 10%. And for somebody that's never invested money before, who's only been putting money in a bank every day, and they don't see the volatility, they're not used to it. I started freaking the hell out, and I was like, hey, like, yeah, I don't like this. I want my money out. And I had to, like, what I did was I sold a lot of it at a loss. Uh, but I kept a little bit because I'm like, okay, I can afford to stay in a little bit because I have people telling me that, hey, like, it might recover. Uh, it's not all over yet. But again, somebody who had no idea how these markets work and operate,
Yeah.
and somebody that was completely over leveraging my capital. Uh, I got scared out of the market because the next day it dropped even more, and then I sold the rest of it at a loss. And that was Air Canada and a bunch of other stocks. So
Yeah.
I didn't understand what I was getting myself into, and I kind of just threw my money at the market and hoping for the best. Uh, about 2 weeks later, around the same time, I saw a lady who was marketing the iGenius platform online, and she was so I asked her about it, and she was telling me how these experts uh, showcase their analysis and their ideas, and they share them with us. And I thought that was a cool concept because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to learn how to fly a plane, I'm probably going to learn from a pilot or somebody who's qualified to train me, not just read a manual and on my first flight, right, while I'm flying the plane. So that's the I guess that's the mistake I made was getting into something without the knowledge of it. But that's so I can understand why people make that mistake the first time. But
Yeah.
again,
Yeah, I think it's a combination of like maybe not being diversified enough. And I mean, no one could anticipate the impact of COVID and what was really coming and like all the things that happened afterwards, right? Like it's something we heard about overseas, but just once it touched down on St. Patty's Day and everything closed down, like nobody could have ever expected that, right? I had a similar situation to that where I was working with a mining client out of Vancouver and I had never bought any stocks either, but I ended up buying stocks with them with like preferred shares. And I think I put in 5,000 and if I sold it a week later, I would have made 3,000. But then 2008 happened. So it dropped to like 500. And then
okay,
I think I just left it in for a while. It went up to maybe 1,500 and essentially just finally cashed out over a period of time. But it just was something that, it wasn't a complete loss, but I obviously lost. I didn't make anything on it. So I can appreciate where you're coming from. Now, on the flip side, you had told me that you were kind of getting into network marketing so that you could make, 500, $1,000 a month. Can you talk about
Mhm.
where that started to where you have it today and maybe talk about a calculated risk that has really significantly paid off for you, whether that comes down to trading or if you want to reflect it with working with iGenius in that capacity?
Right. So network marketing, how to describe network marketing? Essentially, it's a philosophy of word of mouth referral marketing that people do every day naturally already. But the network marketing profession is where people do it and get paid for it. So I was fortunate enough to get involved in iGenius, not knowing that the business model was a network marketing business model. So the way the company had generated revenue was through their customers who became affiliates of the platform, referring other members to the platform.
Yeah.
No traditional advertising, no TV ads, no radio ads, no billboards, just word of mouth referral marketing. Uh, that's what the network marketing philosophy is. And so when I got involved in iGenius, I got involved as a customer only. I wanted to make money under the table. I wanted to hide it from the CRA. I wanted to hide it from everybody that I thought was going to come steal it. And part of the reason was I had a scarcity mentality about money, and a lot of people that I still talk to this day, they remind me of that mentality I had because they're like, if you found a way to make money, why are you telling people about it? And now I look back, I'm like, that's such a weird mindset to have. It's like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you want to spread abundance with the world? Like I'm so grateful for life itself, and I'm grateful for finding a way to make money. For me, not to share it would be, yeah, not good. Let's put it that way. Not
Yeah.
good. Because if the lady that was marketing the platform in March 2020 wasn't marketing it, I don't know where I'd be without the this paradigm
You'd be in
shift.
your cubicle.
Yeah, exactly. So uh, yeah, I got started as in iGenius as a customer, and I found out quickly that uh, I can essentially waive my monthly fee, let's put it that way, arbitrarily, by referring a few friends to the platform. And I knew off the bat a few friends that needed this opportunity to find a way to make money on their phones because my friends spend 10 hours a day on their phones anyways for free. Uh, so I got a few of my friends involved, and naturally, I realized that I was pretty good at referring people to products that I already used. I was doing it for like my whole life, right? And I found the concept of doing it and getting paid for it. Interesting, because I could take that money that I was getting paid and reinvesting it into the markets. I just blown a lot of money buying Air Canada stock and selling it low. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a cool business model because it takes the two quadrants from Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, the investor and the business owner,
Yeah.
uh, and it takes you away from that employee mindset because uh, you can grow cash flowing business through network marketing, and
Yeah.
you can reinvest that capital as an investor into the markets, and you have two of the quadrants working for you, where you're building up time, financial, and location freedom eventually for yourself, detaching yourself from that employee hours for dollars trade.
Yeah.
So yeah, 5 years later, uh, after getting involved in iGenius, been able to make yeah, I was able to replace my engineering uh, salary about 2 years into the journey,
Yeah.
uh, and it's been a wild ride. Very, very rewarding. Not easy, but rewarding for sure.
Now, if you could go back and talk to your younger self, that's been like a big thing recently. I feel like on
Mm.
TikTok, had coffee with my younger self. What would you tell yourself in terms of advice when it comes to things like money mindset and investing?
So my younger self, I tell people like, when people ask me at an older age, for example, if I have somebody in their 50s or 60s, and they're just telling me like around my dad's age, they're like, yeah, I just don't understand how this crypto stuff works. And I can tell that they're so tied up with their lives now and they have so much responsibility and that they can't afford to put their, you know, retirement pensions on cryptocurrency. They just can't, they don't have that risk tolerance.
Yeah.
That somebody, for example, is 18 years old who has all the risks in the world to take and learn about uh, to um, to endure. So what I would tell myself as that kid in high school who didn't listen to the nerds that were buying Bitcoin at 10 cents is take the risks. Like, don't be afraid to take the risks, especially early on, because you have a lot of time to recover early
Yeah.
on. You don't have a family, you don't have kids, you don't have bills, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have this, you don't have that. You just have a lot of time and you have a lot of opportunity to make mistakes and fail forward. And
Yeah.
is the best way to learn from. If I didn't buy those Air Canada, I look back and I say, if I didn't buy that Air Canada stock and lose money on it, I would have never trusted a platform to teach me how to do this thing correctly,
Yeah.
right? But it's
Or
by
saw the
making a mistake and
necessity
taking that
or
risk.
the
Yeah,
value in it, right? Like because you tried to do it on your own and it didn't go the way that you anticipated. So,
yeah, yeah. So exactly, I don't think uh, starting in the school system, I was programmed to that mistakes were bad and you'd fail at your course and redo the course and
yeah.
you get in trouble from your parents and all this. And so again, failure for the smartest kids in school is very, very scary. And that's why you see, and I have a lot of friends personally, especially in entrepreneurship that are not necessarily your straight A students, but uh, they have straight A students working for them in their businesses, right? It's funny how that works because they were able to take the risk, and the people that weren't taking the risks somehow end up working for the people that did.
Yeah.
In a
And it
funny
could also be
circle of
sometimes the
life.
things that you're exposed to, right? Like I feel like I didn't really hear a lot about crypto or Bitcoin until even just a couple of years ago, right? So it can
Yeah,
even sometimes be just that one person that you meet that makes a passing comment about something, or even now it's different because with social media and these different platforms, it's a lot easier to figure those things out. But sometimes it could just be as simple as that. Now, in terms of things like short-term gains with long-term wealth building strategies, how do you find that balance? Because obviously you've been doing this for a while, but do you have a strategy that you keep in mind to kind of stay on budget, or like how do you know, put parameters on on your trading and stuff like that?
right. So cryptocurrency investing in a nutshell, up until now, historically, cryptocurrency has been working on 4-year market cycles where you have essentially 3 years where the market's moving up and 1 year where everything goes to hell. Uh, but that market resets and you have 4-year cycles, and every time your market peaks out, it peaks out higher than it did in the previous 4-year cycle, and vice versa. When it crashes, it doesn't crash to where it crashed to in the cycle before. And I'm referring to the major cryptocurrency assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum, uh, and all that. Uh, you're asking about long term and short term. So my cryptocurrency investing philosophy uh, to date is essentially playing that market cycle. Now, of course, these market cycles are changing now with all this institutional money and all the pro crypto uh, institutions that are, I guess, taking over this space now.
Yeah.
But we still see a lot of volatility, and I'm still to this day playing the cycles where I bought low during the bear market and I kind of dollar cost average where I you can't time the very bottom of the market, but you can accumulate where when prices are low after they've crashed 70-80%.
Yeah.
And then you can take profits in a bull market where prices are appreciating. And you won't time the very top of the roller coaster, but you'll be okay if you get off somewhere near the top and you've tripled your money, 5x your money in some
Yeah.
cases, 7 to 10x your money. So that's my philosophy in crypto is basically looking at in a 4 year span, accumulating for the first half and then taking profits in the second half.
Yeah.
That's a in a nutshell crypto investing. But there are day traders that trade crypto with leverage in this with platforms that allow for futures trading. It's kind of like options trading with crypto, where you can bet on the market going long or short with leverage,
Yeah.
very fast paced in and out trading. Some people do that with crypto. It's very risky, in my opinion, because the market can get manipulated very easily.
Yeah.
Um, People do short term like that. Some people are buying Bitcoin. These are the extremists. These are ones that buy Bitcoin and never sell it. Uh, Literally, uh, they're called Bitcoin maximalists. I don't know if you heard Michael Saylor, who's the head of a company called MicroStrategy that's now renamed Strategy, but he's just using debt to buy Bitcoin, and it's worked out very, very well for him. And his plan is not even to sell the Bitcoin; it's just holding it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Someone was telling me that about, you know, not to have like an RESP for your kids, but to buy them a Bitcoin when they're young.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
as they get older, like that could be something. Now, in terms of looking forward, would you say that you have any intention of diversifying into real estate or stocks or like other asset classes, or do you intend to just stay in this space?
No, no, for sure. I'm not as much as I love my cryptocurrency. I know I can't live in my mom's basement with a Bitcoin and sleep with it under my pillow. Uh, you have to understand a couple things because cryptocurrency is such a volatile asset class. Uh, there still needs to be some sort of backbone in your investment thesis, and I find real estate to be a very viable backbone in that sense. I first signed on my first pre-construction condo in fall 2020, and a lot of that confidence came from my iGenius business and my investments that I started earlier that year. Finally closing on that condo 5 years later. Now I got my firm occupancy date in August 2025. So it took 5 years to build. But uh, what I really like about real estate is that it's it's God's investment, right? It's land that cannot be printed. It's a proven strategy that has created the most millionaires that history has ever seen. And it's very useful. Again, it's there's so many wealth building strategies when it comes to real estate.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I just can't understand how people can't fathom if you buy property in a place where the economy has historically been good
Yeah.
and you just park your cash there, right? Like you're going to be good long term. You're going to be good. There's very few places in the world uh, where that hasn't panned out for you in that sense
Yeah.
because in every fiat currency to date has died eventually. So if you're going to keep like if you have the option to keep your money in Canadian dollars or buy uh a property in the GTA, for example, long term in 20 years, right? You're probably going to be better off parking your money in an asset that's going to make you more money than your Canadian dollar is going to make you,
Yeah.
right? I also earlier this I guess February, my mom and I purchased a studio in Dubai too. So
Wow.
it's crazy how cheap they are there still,
Yeah.
even though it's a booming market. All the investors are throwing their money there. We were able to get a studio for 200,000 Canadian dollars.
Wow.
So again, same philosophy. People are throwing their money there from all over the world. And where are we going to be better off having that $200,000 in Canadian in 10 years, or are we better off putting that $200,000 Canadian into a property in Dubai for 10 years? Where are we going to be better off in 10 years? So
Yeah.
we're thinking like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes sense. I mean, obviously, just from talking to as many real estate investors as I do, a lot of them study the demographics and where populations are headed and stuff like that, right? And I think that's like why Texas is so big right now. Like it just seems like it's an area where everybody is moving to, and it's got the highest concentration of rental trucks that are just one way. In terms of like moving trucks and stuff like that, it's got the highest concentration of people just going one way because they intend to move there and they get relocated back and stuff like that. But in terms of anyone that wants to get in touch with you and learn more about iGenius, because I think you've got such an interesting path, and I think it's something that would pique the interest of a lot of people that could be tuning in now or later on. So, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They can reach out to me at Vlad Bulban on Instagram, and I will respond to you.
Well,
It's
and
simple.
I'll make sure I
I
include
like
that
helping
in
people.
the.
I don't gatekeep. I love recreating the first time that I found a way to make my money make money. I love recreating that feeling in other people. It
Yeah,
gets me going every single day because I can see people's mindset paradigm shift happen in front of my eyes. It's a different way to save the world than I thought engineering would be when
yeah,
was solving my boss's problems more than my own back then. So
yeah.
very, very
I
cool
love that.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I appreciate your time tonight. I'll make sure that I include that detail once this is loaded officially on YouTube for anyone that can find you. And of course, for anyone that is watching, we appreciate your time as well. And remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again.
Love that.